on the front line of the battle over rent reform, why Catholic housing advocates are being arrested fighting for tenants' rights. I'm Tamara Lane in Albany.
There's a new bishop in New York. Father Douglas Lucia will lead the church in Syracuse. We'll hear from him tonight. President Trump meeting with outgoing Prime Minister Theresa May in London. He wants to make a deal.
Absolutely, I would not break the seal of confessional. I would go to jail.
A growing number of priests are sounding the alarm about a proposed law that would threaten the sacred seal of confession. The news starts right now. Tensions in Albany as Catholics are being arrested in the fight for tenants' rights. Good evening, I'm Emily Drewby. The laws that govern apartment rents in New York are about to expire, and the debate over what happens next is getting heated. Today, Catholic housing advocates are in Albany demanding rent reform. Currents News' Tamara Lane reports the latest from the state capitol.
Hundreds of social justice crusaders stormed the Capitol building Tuesday morning in an act of civil disobedience. The protest, a last-ditch effort to demand action from legislators to strengthen protections for tenants' rights.
One by one, they were carted away by police. The first to be detained, Charlie Dulick, a Catholic organizer from Brooklyn.
People deserve to have a roof over their heads. There's a million quotes in the Bible to that effect. There's a million teachings that all of us have had in church over the years about, providing for people, especially those who are most vulnerable.
The peaceful act of civil disobedience at times turning chaotic as protesters tried to block a major section of the Capitol building, hoping to be heard.
My own sort of fear and frustration with the housing system, coupled with seeing people on all sides of me suffering, really, radicalized me in housing. So that's what brought me here.
Their demand? That legislators pass progressive renter protections. The reforms are a package of 9 bills that have been proposed for renters' rights, which would strengthen protections for nearly 1 million rent-stabilized tenants living in New York City. An issue personal to many residents in Brooklyn, Queens, and the Bronx, many of whom pay more than 30% of their income on rent.
This is about our children.
2 New York State senators from Brooklyn are speaking out. First, Senator Julia Salazar, who introduced one of the bills, said, "It is important that New Yorkers understand that this crisis is entirely man-made. The landlord lobby has used its political power and campaign cash to write our housing laws for their own benefit." However, pro-landlord organizations like the Real Estate Board of New York and the Rent Stabilization Association, who have not yet returned our request for comment, have argued that reforms will put working-class landlords and contractors in a financial pinch. State Senator Zellner Myrie argues now is the time to fight to get them back. Too many bad landlords have gotten away with charging sky-high rents and making record profits while their buildings fall apart and their tenants struggle to feed their families. This is not just a housing crisis, but a moral crisis.
This is not the end of the fight. Current regulations are scheduled to sunset on June 15th. As this is a big issue for residents in Brooklyn and Queens, I'll continue to follow this story as it develops. I'm Tamara Lane in Albany, Currents News.
Pope Francis has handpicked a new leader for the Diocese of Syracuse. Father Douglas Lucia will serve as Syracuse's 11th bishop, succeeding Bishop Robert Cunningham, who submitted his resignation last year after turning 75. The bishop-elect greeted the diocese earlier today.
On the bottom of the chalice which my family gave me by their own when I was ordained as a priest are the words, "ordained to God's service." These words have been a beacon for the past 30 years of my priestly ministry, and they set the stage for the next part of the journey with you. I'm here to serve the people of the Diocese of Syracuse, Catholic and non-Catholic alike.
Lucia will be ordained and installed at Syracuse's Cathedral of the Immaculate Conception later this summer. The clock is counting down on the last abortion clinic operating in Missouri. The state wants to shut it down. Planned Parenthood going to court to keep performing the deadly procedures. Kristen Holmes reports a judge heard arguments this afternoon.
The future of Missouri's last abortion clinic remains uncertain. The latest in a number of statewide battles with national implications taking place here in Missouri.
These doors stay open!
Where a dispute between the state and Planned Parenthood began in March, when officials refused to renew the clinic's license.
There are a number of serious health concerns that still exist at the Planned Parenthood St. Louis facility. Every step should be taken to ensure that all laws are followed for the safety and well-being of women's health care.
If closed, the state would become the first in the country without access to abortion services in decades, since the passing of Roe v. Wade.
A state with no access to abortion is obviously devastating.
Dr. Colleen McNicholas says as the sole abortion clinic, they see about 3,000 Missourians for abortion services a year, and that closing the clinic could have dangerous effects for women.
It's really devastating when you think about the impact on their own individual health and the health of their families.
Last week, a judge ruled to temporarily keep the clinic open and operating, citing, quote, immediate and irreparable injury if it were to shut down. Missouri joining the slew of states passing some of the strictest abortion laws in the country, banning abortion at 8 weeks of pregnancy. In St. Louis, I'm Kristen Holmes.
A majority of Americans now consider abortion morally unacceptable. The difference is narrow, but the support for life has gained over the past year. A new Gallup poll shows 50% of the country disapproves of aborting the unborn, while 42% are in favor of abortion. Last year, opinions split evenly, 48% to 48%. The alarms are sounding over a proposed law in California threatening the seal of confession. It has already gotten through the state Senate, and if signed into law, the measure would require priests to report suspected cases of child abuse if they were revealed during confession, forcing a priest to break the sacred seal. Clergy blasting the bill, saying they would refuse to follow it.
I guess I would have to go to jail.
I know no priest who would choose to violate his conscience towards God.
The bill, introduced by Democratic Senator Jerry Hill, already passed the California Senate and will be voted on by the state assembly this fall. It has caused an uproar in the Catholic community as it would put priests in an impossible situation, forcing them to choose between breaking the law or breaking the seal of confession.
The church is very clear about the penalty of automatic excommunication from the church that a priest would automatically incur if he deliberately and knowingly reveals the content of a sacramental confession.
Right now, rules are in place requiring clergy to go to authorities to report any wrongdoings they learn about outside of the sacrament. Currently, anything heard in the confessional is protected. Father Thomas Berg of New York's St. Joseph Seminary arguing that the seal is the reason the faithful feel comfortable sharing their sins.
It has been the trust and the certainty of the laity that that is the one place that they could relieve conscience of anything. If we make one exception to that, that all goes away.
Priests are saying they have options when a penitent confesses to child abuse. They can withhold absolution and they can counsel the sinner to come forward, all without breaking the seal. A specialist in the area of combating abuse, Monsignor Stefan Rossetti, saying this bill becoming law would likely not yield results because child abusers don't confess the sin in the confessional.
I have never heard it in confessional. I never will. None of the priests I know have heard it. It's just, they can pass the law, but it's not going to have any impact whatsoever. It's just going to make people feel good.
California Bishop Michael Barber already forbidding any of his priests from obeying the bill if it becomes law, and he said that he's prepared to go to jail if necessary. Cardinal George Pell's appeal against his criminal conviction for child sexual abuse will be heard in an Australian court starting tomorrow. The former Archbishop of Melbourne was convicted last year of 5 charges of abuse against minors more than 20 years ago. The court will hear arguments on Wednesday and Thursday. Pell has been in prison since March. President Donald Trump is asking outgoing British Prime Minister Theresa May to stick around, kicking off day 2 of his state visit to the UK by discussing a possible trade agreement, security, and Brexit. Anna Stewart has the latest from London.
I am very pleased to welcome the President of the United States of America.
Day 2 of President Trump's state visit to the UK, dominated by political discussions.
It's the greatest alliance the world has ever known.
It is that unity of purpose that will preserve the deep-rooted ties between our people.
Trump attending meetings with outgoing Prime Minister Theresa May, which included a business roundtable and a bilateral meeting at May's residence. May and Trump discussing an array of topics, including foreign policy, security and trade, especially as the UK navigates its exit from the European Union.
I think we're going to have a great trade deal, yes. I think everything with a trade deal is on the table.
May is slated to step down as the leader of the Conservative Party on Friday.
I personally believe that it is in the best interests of the UK to leave the European Union with a deal. I believe there is a good deal on the table. Obviously, it will be for whoever succeeds me as Prime Minister to take this issue forward.
President Trump has voiced support for former Foreign Secretary Boris Johnson for the job, speaking to the Conservative lawmaker on the phone Tuesday, according to a British official.
I know Boris. I like him. I've liked him for a long time. I think he'd do a very good job.
Meanwhile, the largest anti-Trump demonstrations are expected Tuesday throughout the city. In London, I'm Anna Stewart reporting.
Critics of the communist regime in China are warning things are worse now than 30 years ago after the Tiananmen Square massacre. The bloody crackdown against pro-democracy demonstrators left hundreds of people dead and thousands injured and produced the indelible image of a young man confronting a tank. It all happened on this day 3 decades ago. Fang Zhang lost his legs in the violence and says conditions in China are bad.
And in recent years, under the rule of President Xi Jinping, the political situation has become harsher.
Fang accuses Beijing of increasing repression against human rights activists and Christians. There's a lot more news headed your way. 3 days after being ordained as a new priest in the Brooklyn Diocese, Father Michael Falce talks to us about his first days on the job. The Trump White House is putting the squeeze on Cuba. U.S. citizens are caught in the middle. The reason why purple water flowed out of some faucets this morning. Do you have a story idea or want to share a tip? Email us at newstips@desalesmedia.org or call our 24-hour number 718-517-3122. We'll be right back. He's off and running. New priest Father Michael Falce celebrating one of his first masses with students from the Brooklyn Diocese. Just 3 days ago, he, along with 3 other men, had a joyous start to their priesthood during the ordination mass at the Co-Cathedral of St. Joseph's. And now it's time to begin his new life as a priest in the Brooklyn Diocese. Currents News' Tim Harfman caught up with Father Falce as he gets to work.
In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen.
For Father Michael Falce, the feeling of being newly ordained to the priesthood is setting in.
Wow. Like all these years, I want to be a priest, Well, now I'm a priest, so now I'm ready to get to work.
And he went straight to work, hearing confessions just hours after being ordained by Bishop Nicholas DiMarzio last Saturday.
I was very nervous, I'll be very honest, the first time sitting there. But after a couple of people, it starts to become, wow. And a wonderful experience. And I sat there saying to myself, I have a very long road ahead of me.
On that long journey, the focus of his priesthood, celebrating the Eucharist. Father Falce celebrated his first Mass on Sunday at his home parish of St. Pancras in Glendale.
You could really see the joy of many parishioners who, for so many years, every time they would see me when I would come home, the question would be, how many more years? How many more years?
Now that question is finally answered. Today, he's visiting St. Mel's Church in Flushing, celebrating Mass for the Catholic Academy's 7th graders. Students taking time to ask the new priest questions.
What's it like being a priest?
The first 3 days have really been wonderful.
Celebrating at Mass, Father Gerard Sauer, St. Mel's current pastor. But in a few weeks, Father Sauer will become the pastor of St. Patrick's Church in Bay Ridge, Brooklyn, where Father Falchuk has been assigned. Father Sauer recalling the advice he received from his first pastor after being ordained in 2001.
For every single day you're a priest, you meet somebody else. And he goes, the more you're a priest, the more people are going to meet you and want you and need you.
And Father Sauer bestowing his own advice on his brother priest.
Enjoy every bit of it, take it slow, and continue to serve the Lord.
Father Falchuk plans on doing just that as soon as reality completely sets in. I have to keep saying to myself, I am a priest. In Flushing, Queens, Tim Harfman, Currents News.
There are major new restrictions on Americans traveling to Cuba. The White House revealing them this afternoon, blaming Havana for providing a communist foothold in the region. U.S. citizens are being blocked from going to the island through organized tour groups. The Trump administration is saying the new ban will keep U.S. dollars out of the hands of Cuba's military and spy services. The clampdown on travel starts Wednesday. Mario Perez is the co-founder of the Catholic Association of Latino Leaders and an expert on the region. He joins us now from Manhattan. Mario, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for the invitation. Happy to talk to you.
Mario, the administration is accusing Havana of propping up the regimes in Venezuela and Nicaragua and causing trouble throughout the Western Hemisphere. Could a travel ban change that?
I don't believe so. Simply, we have other issues that are very humanitarian in value, and so the restrictions will continue to maintain a political standby, so to speak. But definitely, I don't see that the travel ban will affect really the role of Cuba in the hemisphere.
Pope Francis played a key role in rebuilding relations between Castro's Cuba and the Obama White House 5 years ago. Does a travel ban hurt that relationship? And what do you think Pope Francis's reaction will be?
I have no doubt that the reaction of the Holy Father will be to continue to call for dialogue, for understanding and better relationship among the people. Let us remember there are 60 years of revolutionary government in Cuba. So many administrations has gone by and we have not been successful in our relationship with Cuba.
There seems to be an easing of restrictions on Catholics in Cuba recently. Will the U.S. action blocking travel to the island cause a backlash that could impact the church?
That is not predictable, it's uncertain, but definitely the Catholic Church in Cuba is going through a moment of rebuilding the community of faith in all the dioceses. I pray and I hope that we will continue to enrich the faith of the Cuban people. And also, if this restriction become very dramatic, I hope that they will not affect the humanitarian work that the church is doing in Cuba.
Mario, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for the invitation.
A brave man in Texas beat first responders to save his neighbor from his burning home. Marco Bergen ran towards the flames, yelling out for his neighbor. When he made it past the black smoke, he spotted the bottom of his feet and dragged him out with the help of another neighbor.
And when I opened the front door, the black smoke was so thick it actually knocked me in the face and almost passed out. Someone was yelling behind me, and then I finally heard him, and then I asked for a flashlight.
The victim was said to be talking before being taken to the hospital for evaluation. Officials say the fire was ignited by improperly discarded smoking materials in the garage. Hundreds of residents in Ohio woke up to purple water spewing out of their faucets. The local treatment plant says the vibrant color was caused by a pump malfunction that dumped too many chemicals into the flow. The city flushed the system several times Monday, but people still need to run the water until the purple goes away. The plant operator says the water is not dangerous. Still to come on Currents News, the St. John Paul II trip to Poland that changed world history, and how the biker community is coming together to celebrate a special little boy's birthday. And the tablet has a brand new page called Our Diocesan Family, where you can share your pictures of recent baptisms, Holy Communions, confirmations, marriage, all of the joyous sacraments. For more details and to submit your photos, go to thetablet.org/ourdiocesanfamily. Your picture may be published in an upcoming issue of the newspaper. We'll be right back. This week marks the 40th anniversary of St. John Paul II's visit to Poland, a visit that eventually led to the collapse of the Soviet Union and its brand of communism. Sean Richardson reports.
It is 40 years since St. John Paul II first visited Poland between June the 2nd to the 10th in 1979. It was an historic moment as the country was ruled by the oppressive regime of the Soviet Union. The Polish ambassador to the Holy See remembers fondly Pope John Paul II's visit to Poland.
Right in the middle of Warsaw was about 1 million of Poles, and we were listening with tears in our eyes to the words of Polish Pope. He was saying that you must do that and that, you mustn't be afraid. You are Catholics, you are Poles. You are young people. The future belongs to you.
He notes how the Pope's visit helped bring about peaceful change and ultimately the collapse of communism. This is because soon after his visit, millions of Polish people formed the Solidarity Trade Union.
Communist Party was always saying to us, yes, we are for you. We are for the workers, for the poor people. And now those people, they said no. It was absolutely peaceful. Absolutely peaceful.
According to the Polish ambassador, the Soviet government warned John Paul II not to visit, and afterwards sought ways to destroy solidarity among the Polish people.
The first secretary of the Soviet Communist Party, Leonid Brezhnev, said before the visit, "Oh, we know that Wojtyła is such a wise man. Tell him he must announce that he is sick. It will be better for him not to come to Poland." They tried. During the martial law, Jaruzelski was trying to destroy our Solidarność, our liberty, but he didn't make it.
He says it is important people do not forget John Paul II, who strongly stood against the violation of human rights and life. Sean Richardson, Currents News.
A little boy in Florida got a birthday surprise he'll never forget.
Happy birthday, dear Carter.
Carter Rhodes suffers from a rare form of muscular dystrophy, which weakens the muscles around his lungs and spine, making it hard for him to breathe.
He has several breathing machines that he has to use every single day. He has to sleep with it. If he doesn't, he could pass away.
Carter loves trucks and motorcycles, so some riders clubs in the area pitched in to help with his medical bills. This year, they surprised him with a year-long pass to Disney and a new laptop, as well as a $1,300 donation to his family. That is Currents News. I'm Emily Druby. Thank you for joining us because we are putting your faith in the news. Hope to see you again next time.